I've been doing lots of different shows, and I have long-term goals for myself in terms of taking part in like events like Collect, which is like the pinnacle of contemporary craft in the UK, and I hope that I'll get to experience that one day. But yeah, there's definitely concerns about like the exclusivity of some of the events that happen around contemporary craft.
Welcome back to Artfully Crafted. My name is Eleanor, and each week I travel to a craftsperson's studio, interview them and show you their work. This week we're going to Ealing to meet Joanne Lamb, whose artworks bring weaving and basketry techniques together. I met Joanne through the Creative Connections program at the Artworkers Guild. She was part of the first cohort that went through the program. I was very taken by the way she has brought two distinct disciplines together in a way that is entirely her own. And last summer, she was selected to exhibit that work at the Royal Academy of Art's summer exhibition for the very first time. Congratulations on that, Joanne. Let's get into it. Hi, Joanne.
Hi, Eleanor.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm very pleased to have been invited to take part, so thank you.
So we are in your studio in West Ealing. And it's a really, it's quite an unusual setup. You said that the building is going to be like taken over and turned into flats at some point, right?
Yeah, so I rent my studio from an organisation called Set Space, who have got different locations across London. And yeah, so they're kind of like temporary, very affordable studios. So yeah, this is a kind of an abandoned office building that's been here for a long time. And so yeah, they've kind of very quickly and cheaply divvied up the space and kind of got different size studios. So yeah, we're kind of waiting to get turfed out at some stage. We know that they're going to redevelop the area and turn it into flats for young professionals. So hopefully Set will work with the council and find us another location, because yeah, there's maybe 40 artists here. So yeah, and it's really handy to where I live. So, and yeah, it's a really good price for being a new artist. So yeah, I'm really glad to have it, and I can store all my stuff here, and it's a nice space to work. And but yeah, I'll probably have to get ready to move at some stage.
Yeah, because it's really tricky, I think, in London finding an affordable studio. It's like, it's bad enough having to, you're paying rent on your own home, and then you're having to think about the studio space as well. It's it's a lot.
Yeah, there's other studios that I would love to kind of in time kind of work towards getting a space there, because I suppose sometimes opportunities can come from being in like these more visible studios, but for the minute, like, this serves all I need. I've got the space, and yeah, like it's convenient, so I'm really happy to have it. So yeah, I'm just trying to be here as much as possible. So yeah, I do all my making here, and there's a kitchen that I can use for whenever I'm doing natural dyeing and things, so I can make a mess here and keep my home reasonably tidy. So that's the plan.
That's good. So you originally trained as a weaver and as a textile designer, is that right? Do you want to tell me maybe about, because I think this is a sort of a second, almost like a second career for you, what you're doing now. So do you want to talk about maybe the beginning of your career?
Yeah, I'm kind of in this transition stage coming out the other side. But yeah, I'm from Belfast, Northern Ireland, and I studied there, and I did a textile design degree. And my pathway was weave. I got very interested in weave as soon as I started at college. I always loved textiles. I don't really know where it came from. But yeah, so I studied as a weaver, and then I worked for a few different companies in Northern Ireland. So yeah, kind of designing fabrics or like homeware products and stuff like that. So I did that. And then I moved to London about 10 years ago to kind of like further my career, because there's only so many textile companies left in Ireland, sadly. Kind of more and more mills are closing down. So, so yeah, I moved to London, and I work for a few different brands over here, working as a textile designer, and then as I progressed, kind of doing more like creative direction and managing teams. And so like, yeah, I did pretty well as a textile designer, because it's, it's quite a difficult industry to work within. But yeah, I was just feeling quite frustrated that I wasn't making, most of it's kind of designed on the computer, and you work with these like really amazing mills across the world. But yeah, you're kind of specifying everything, but then it's being made somewhere else. And so, yeah.
So it's quite dissociated in a way from the making process.
Yeah, and then there's a kind of a whole other set of things that goes on too around, like measuring sales and kind of what's working, and trying to get things in on price and stuff. And so, yeah, I did really enjoy doing that, and I still do a little bit of that to support myself. But yeah, then after that, I went to work for a really lovely gallery called the New Craftsman for a little bit. I already knew that I was thinking about going back to college to study, and wanting to maybe try to be an artist. So, so that was really helpful, just to kind of meet other makers, kind of get their perspective on like what it is like, and just kind of the reality of what you have to do to survive as an artist and a maker. So.
And you got that very interesting viewpoint of seeing it from the gallery's perspective.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, completely. So I think now that I've kind of come out the other side and I'm starting to work with galleries and stuff, like I do appreciate what they do, and yeah, just kind of certain galleries that are kind of maybe more appropriate for my work, and so yeah, it was really good to sort of understand how they work, and how they go about selecting artists and stuff. So so yeah, I did that, and then yeah, I applied to do my master's in textiles at the Royal College. So I started there in 2022 and graduated last year. So yeah, that was where, like, yeah, I was really expecting to get back on the loom and weave. And
would you say that having had all of these experiences of working with sort of that commercial perspective of being a designer, and then working with the commercial gallery, the New Craftsman, would you say that impacted the sort of mindset that you had coming into studying at the RCA?
I think, yeah, I was quite, I suppose, yeah, from being a textile designer, like you very much are kind of interested in like the end product. So it's not always about kind of process and everything. It's, you have to start and you have to finish. And so that's maybe being sometimes, that works against me sometimes as an artist, because I have to kind of enjoy the process a little bit. But yeah, I think that background in textiles and that love of textiles and has definitely kind of influenced the work that I'm making, and like the color and everything that comes into it, which isn't necessarily expected with basketry and things. So yeah, there's a lot of good that came from being a designer, and just kind of I've always been quite driven. But yeah, then going to the New Craftsman, I think it was really helpful just to see like the storytelling that they were putting into the work, and how they were really sort of elevating craft, and yeah, and also sort of realizing that I needed to have like a point of difference. Like there's so many amazing artists out there, and yeah, I just didn't really want to be like derivative of anybody, so going back to college and trying to channel all of the different things that I liked and that I responded to, and then starting to see where I thought my work would go. It really helped me kind of get this strong foundation for my work. So yeah, I think all of those different experiences have helped me get to this point.
Yeah.
Where, I do treat being an artist and a maker in quite a professional way to a degree. Like that's how I want to interact with everybody and galleries and things like that. And setting myself goals and things, like I do want to, I'm taking it very seriously. But at the same time, it's, so much of it is out of your control whenever you're an artist and a maker. So I'm trying to make things happen for myself. But I'm hoping that it'll start to work the other way as well.
Would you say that in terms of, because some people might be doing a master's at the RCA, having freshly finished, art school, and they might not have had, the work experience that you've had, leading up to it. Do you think that influenced what you wanted to get out of it, or maybe the knowledge you had about the type of things that you wanted to make?
Yeah, I think it definitely was the right time for me to go. And yeah, like I already had an awareness of kind of how the contemporary craft scene looked in the UK, and there was different makers that I'd been exposed to and could see the sorts of careers that they were having, and so yeah, I think I'm glad that I did my MA whenever I did, because you generally you're only going to do one in your life, so I think if I'd done it quite quickly after being a designer, I don't know if I would have chosen this path. I think it's kind of came at the right time in my life where I've had one career which I really enjoyed and was good at, but now I'm ready for something different, and I want to bring that background and my experience and kind of my point of view. So
and had that focus in your studies, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of going to the RCA, like the tutors, the technicians, they were great and they really saw what I wanted and kind of were able to help guide me. At the same time, you're it's very self-directed, so it's up to you to learn the skills that are necessary for you and to try out different things and experiment and stuff. They're just sort of giving you a framework, but in this kind of different way of approaching things. So I'm really glad that I went when I did and I was ready for it. But I think if you're maybe a bit younger and you're just kind of hoping that they're going to help shape you, and getting a master's will help you get a job, well, that's not my experience, and I don't think that really happens anymore. It's not like, you go to the RCA and you have your graduate show and someone comes along and, buys the whole thing. It just doesn't work that way anymore. So maybe it never really did, but, unless you were Hockney or Frank Bowling or something. So yeah, no, it was the right time for me to go and I enjoyed it.
But you think it was helpful for you to know exactly what you wanted to do there and how you wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And it enabled you to kind of extract maximum value from it in a way.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's an expensive thing to do. And it was like a lot of art colleges, there's more emphasis now probably on innovation and STEM subjects and things like that, which whenever you're doing different modules and projects and stuff, that I didn't think were appropriate for me. It was good to remind myself that this is why I'm here, and this, don't put too much energy on this, just do what you need to do, but keep focusing about my practice. And so it was always kind of coming back to what do I want to get from this? How do I want to push it? And so yeah, no, it was good to go, but I didn't. The work that I'm making isn't really what I thought I would be making. I thought I was going to get back on the loom and I would be weaving fabric, and I knew I wanted to make artworks and things. I'd already started to dabble a little bit before going back, just kind of at home. I had some tapestry frame looms and stuff like that. So I just hadn't expected to go 3D, but
you. I mean, your time at and actually I'm thinking the New Craftsman, they've rebranded now, haven't it? It's the Craftsmakers?
The new Craftmaker.
The new Craftmaker, that's right. So the new Craftmaker, they do have a lot of basketry as part of their roster of craftspeople there. Do you think, because immediately that's what sort of comes to mind. It's sort of the weaving and the basketry sort of together. So did that influence that sort of leaving the 2D? And
yeah, definitely. I think initially I was I've always enjoyed basketry, basketry and textiles, they go hand in hand. There's very similar techniques, and so they do, if you like one you're probably going to like the other. But I think the nice thing about working there was that they had quite a lot of basket makers from the more traditional kind of heritage skills to more expressive basketry, and I hadn't really known very much about that, where you can use basketry materials and kind of express, whether it's you're allowing the materials to express themselves or you're being more kind of artful with the work. So I think I was exposed to basketry that I hadn't seen before, but at the same time my love of textiles and colour and kind of natural materials, yes, but not typical basketry natural materials like willow and cane and things. I wanted to work with wool, I wanted to work with mohair and paper and things. So I got a book and I knew someone who did a little bit of basketry, so they taught me a technique, and that kind of got me going, because once I was back at college on the loom, it just wasn't really achieving what I wanted. So I was trying to, because weaving can be very structured, and I was trying to manipulate it quite a lot, and
so you were being innovative, basically.
trying to like make more kind of open, loose structures.
Is it okay if I pick up one
Yes,
of them?
please do. So yeah, it just, for some reason, it just wasn't kind of appealing to me. So started to explore basketry and kind of find this way in using a technique called random weaving. And so I weave around different molds, and this work started to come as college was like kind of getting ready for the last term. So
Oh, really? As late as that?
Yeah, I wasn't really sure if I was going to like find my the method that was right for me. Like I knew what I wanted the work to be about, and that the materials that I wanted to use, and the kind of feeling that I wanted people to have with my work. But the actual finished work only really came after doing quite a bit of experimenting, trying different things. And I really loved the basketry, these kind of quite small vessels, and then I tried to scale it up quite a lot, and then that didn't work. And then someone was like, but the small ones are beautiful, like it's okay to be small. And I was like, okay, like it's, because they are quite small.
And you do have, like this is one of the bigger ones.
Yeah, that's a large one.
Yeah.
That's my large. So it all came together, which I was, very pleased about, but I was starting to come to terms with the fact that I was probably going to have to push a bit more beyond college, but that was kind of realistic as well. It's not, couldn't have really expected in this short amount of time that I was just going to have this eureka moment, but thankfully it did come.
So let's maybe delve into that, because I feel like you've mentioned it and just brushed over it. So you said that you knew what you wanted it to be about, you know what materials you wanted to use, and you knew what you wanted people to feel. So if we just unpack that, let's start maybe with what you wanted it to be about.
So my work is all about nature and trying to capture the beauty of nature, and that tends to also be quite seasonal. So I'm trying to be kind of out in nature and getting attuned to the kind of the shift with the seasons. And I want to celebrate the beauty of nature and kind of put it on a pedestal. So I think going back to college was kind of unpacked quite a lot of this, but really it came down to, there was an artist that I saw an exhibition of her work at Kew Gardens a few years ago called Rebecca Louise Law, and she had this kind of dried flower installation in one of the galleries, and it was just so beautiful. And that was a few years ago, and it really stayed with me that that's the the art that I love, and it's all about nature. And so then I was looking at the Impressionists and Monet and Van Gogh, and where it's quite escapist, because I grew up in a housing estate in Belfast, and it was very grey. It's inner city, and didn't really I wasn't climbing trees when I was little. It was through books. Through art books in my teens, and this was Klimt, and really maximalist, colourful, escapist works of art, which were kind of nature focused. So that was what I wanted to. Well, that was the work that I felt emotionally connected to the most. And then I don't live too far from Kew Gardens, so I would just try to go there as much as possible, and just really got so much out of it mentally when I would go, and just. Enjoying seeing all of the plants and the flowers and things and the colours. So I was fairly clear that I wanted it to be
nature.
Yeah, celebrating nature and hopefully strengthening my own relationship with nature and feeling more emotionally attached. And then maybe that would encourage others to kind of feel the same. I want people to feel like they're in nature when they look at my work. So
and I feel that, because I mean, actually, sort of when you first approach it, you're not quite sure whether it might actually be dried plants in a way that you've used, which I kind of love the fact that it's sort of, you kind of discover that. And actually, if you can tell us about the materials that you use, that'd be great.
So before I went back to college, I was kind of making these kind of woven pieces, and I was actually including dried flowers and stuff into the work, which I do still like, but I think I mainly use wool and mohair, all natural fibres. But I love wool and mohair because they do really feel like they're kind of from the land, and they have this fuzzy textural quality that kind of makes me think of the Impressionists, you know, like, so
And
yeah.
where do you source them from?
So mainly kind of UK or Irish mills. And then, yeah, having worked as a textile designer for quite a long time, I have lots of like odds and ends because I only need quite small amounts in my work.
Right.
So, you know, I could make a couple of baskets probably out of these tiny little pieces. Yeah. So I've kind of collected lots of small bits of yarn.
I love that.
And then, yeah, I also do some natural dyeing with, I do some natural dyeing as well. So.
And that's what you mentioned earlier, where you can use the kitchen here.
Yeah, I can make a mess and make a stink because it's not.
So how do you dye what do you use?
So yeah, whenever you're natural dyeing, again, you have to, like, it has to be natural fibres anyway. But yeah, so yeah, I've got wool and mohair and some silk in here, some linen and cotton. And yeah, whether it's like food waste sometimes, like, you know, cabbage or tea bags or onion skins and things, but then also to kind of broaden my palette, I've been buying extract, like natural extracts. So whether it's madder root or weld or kind of things like that. So yeah, trying to broaden my palette a bit. So yeah, these are like my paints, I suppose. So yeah, I collect, there's very little waste with what I do. But then yeah, I've also been getting, buying quite a lot of yarn from different Irish mills and Scottish mills. So.
Yeah, because you said at the beginning that, you know, Irish mills have been closing down sort of one after another, and you felt that was a great shame. So I guess you're trying to like feed back into that.
Yeah, it's definitely like a much smaller scale now. The mills that are left in Ireland and in places like Scotland and stuff, you know, I think production wise it is. More kind of family business again, and so yeah, I've got lots of lovely wools, and I like when they're blended, so you kind of get different colours in the yarns. So yeah, it's not very often that there'll be like I'm
picking up everything and doing a real.
I'm slightly obsessed with green.
Me too.
But yeah, it's not like a solid green, you know, like
I
it's
love how there's like
quite
bits
blended
of blue in it as well.
Yeah, so
It's such a lovely.
even whenever I'm naturally dyeing, I'm not dyeing like very well because I don't want it to be like a solid color. You know, I want it to be quite mottled, and so it shows the hand, I suppose, that it has been done by hand, and so yeah, that appeals to me. But yeah, and also these are all very tactile, which I like, and using the mohair and the wool. People are really drawn to want to touch them because, like you say, they don't necessarily know what they're made from. I start with a paper yarn called tatami, which it's this kind of off-white colour, but because it's paper, I can paint it. So as well as doing natural dyeing, I'll make my own botanical inks as well with those dyes. And then, so I weave this paper around different moulds that I have. Using a basketry technique called random weaving. So that kind of gives me the structure of the vessels. Yeah. And then I start to layer in the textile materials. So,
I see.
But yeah, it's all quite...
So this part is that material, and you've dyed part of it, and then this is the textile.
Yes, which is woven through kind of using, I think that one's got twining as a technique in it. But yeah, they're all quite... like domestic textile techniques. So I'll whether it's knotting or wrapping or darning or things like that. So I basically taken a couple of quite simple basketry techniques and combined it with sort of intuitive textile techniques to make these delicate vessels, which are hopefully reminiscent of the seasons. Well, they're based on my memories and my experiences of being outside, and that's kind of where the colour comes from, and So
it's not drawing lead; it's memories lead.
Yeah. So whenever I need to be outside in nature to get inspired, and I will do photography and I'll do like yarn wrapping and little paintings and things. But yeah, it's only kind of once I'm back in the studio that I start to sort of recall different experiences that I've had, whether it's a cherry blossom tree or it has to be something really beautiful that has stayed with me, and then I'll start to kind of work on the vessel. So, I might have an idea whenever I start that like I'm going to paint it in this way, and but yeah, quite often it's the more it's the making process that kind of guides me and sort of stimulates ideas and things. So yeah, it's very like ideas led. Yeah. Combined with these like using my intuition and skills that I've had, and like skills that was picked up over the years, because I'm not I wasn't taught any like textile techniques by like the women in my family, which is generally what happens. You know, like the women pass down knitting and crocheting and quilting to typically, you know, the young girls in their family. Like that is happening less and less, I think, these days. So, so yeah, I don't really have this kind of heritage textile background that I know about. I mean, Belfast was like an industrial hub for linen production and things, and I'm sure like going way back, there's textiles is probably in my family, like it's in everybody's family. But yeah, it's all kind of self-taught or just picking up different things from other makers, and you know, and just being very expressive with the making.
Yeah. So what do you want people to feel then?
I really hope that whenever people see my work that they're sort of genuinely like calmed by it. Like, it, you know, I want people to kind of stop and like, you know, take a deep breath and feel like they're kind of being transported into nature. So yeah, whether it's you know, that's why it's been quite nice presenting quite a lot of different pieces, which are just about like say one season or something. And so yeah, like doing projects like that is nice, where it's like a bit of an installation in a way. I do group the work into kind of small groups, maybe like 3 or 5, but then I've done bigger groups of maybe like 20. So yeah,
I
really
like a little art installation.
Yeah, basically. So I'm really trying to kind of capture a portrait of place or of a season, and yeah, kind of reflect those experiences back at the viewer, and you know, preserve nature and share it with others, because yeah, not everyone has access to nature, or like, you know, the beauty that nature can bring. So that was what I got from going to that exhibition all those years ago, and so that's what I hope my work will do. Like, people will be soothed by it and comforted by it. But yeah, and I think it's been really nice showing the work, and that generally people are just so curious about what it's made from, because they just haven't seen these materials being used in this way, and you know, they have a bit like what I used to have. You know, I had a perception of what basketry was, and so yeah, kind of sitting on the edge of textiles and basketry.
And I think this is something that you wanted to highlight, is these are not objects that are usable. They're very much a piece of art, right? Yeah,
that's how I perceive them, and I hope that they'll be enjoyed. So yeah, by kind of putting the work into groups. And, you know, to me, they're these kind of small scale installations. It gives them a lot more presence, because, yeah, the work is quite intricate and small. And I definitely suppose would be concerned that if someone just like kind of bought this to put on a shelf, like it would get a little bit lost, like that narrative is lost. So ideally, I would want that to be a group of 3, and it has much more impact. To me, that is the finished artwork. So yeah, I hope that
compositionally as well, I guess you get like you get more texture and more colours in, and it reflects the variety of nature a little bit more, right?
Yeah, because it's quite a small like canvas, and so I don't want to like overwhelm the vessels by like putting too much on them. So by putting them into a group, so I've got like some groups of 5 or larger ones. Yeah, the entire group of vessels is the artwork. So yeah, I hope people will just enjoy them and like have them in their home, and you get really beautiful shadows from the work, and you know, that kind of ephemerality is really nice. So yeah, they're not functional, just hopefully beautiful objects to be enjoyed.
So would you describe yourself as an artist, or would you describe yourself as a maker?
I use both. I like to use both. So yeah, I tend to introduce myself as an artist and a maker, because yeah, both kind of sides of it are really important. So you know, I feel that I'm making works of art, and you know, I'm inspired by lots of artists, and my process, I think, is quite artistic. I'm trying to break away from maybe how I used to work as a designer, you know, I'm sure it's still in there in the background. But yeah, kind of making is really important, and that was something that I was missing being a designer. So more ideas come, the more that I make. But I suppose, yeah, I like those words as opposed to like a craftsperson or an artisan, because yeah, like I'm still quite new to this, and whenever I think of someone who's, you know, like a master crafter, they've been honing their skills and their particular craft for, you know, years and years, and I'm not there yet. But yeah, and I want to be quite expressive, so skill is important, And there's so much more that I want to learn, but
the concept is also...
Yeah, it's the concept and kind of, and the feeling of the work. And, you know, I wanted to feel quite free. And, you know, whilst I could remake some of these, like, it's the energy that goes into making them that, and the idea behind it that I think is the most important. So, yeah, artist maker is a term that I quite like to use.
You've had a very busy year this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's sort of like highlights you want to mention, but also I kind of wanted to dive in, you know, sort of how you manage your workload and how much you put yourself out there versus the experimenting, you know.
Yeah, so since graduating, I have been like pretty busy just trying to get noticed as an artist and, you know, being visible. So I was very pleased to have been selected for a show called Future Heritage pretty much straight after college. So that was great to have that support from Cara and Julius and, you know, to be, you know, selected for that show. So yeah, that was a good start. And then, yeah, I've done quite a lot of different kind of group exhibitions and open calls and things, took part in Decorex, and that was really great. But probably this year, I took part in the Royal Academy Summer Exhibition, and that was definitely a highlight because I wasn't expecting that. In that, again, you know, like there's kind of this hierarchy of the arts, and what I do is more in the applied arts, and generally with something like the Summer Exhibition and the Royal Academy, you expect it to be much more like the fine arts and painting and sculpture and printmaking. So to get selected, to get kind of shortlisted was really exciting, and then to actually get selected was wonderful, and the work sold. And then I got a commission from it, and I think a few like little bits of press came from it. So, so yeah, it was really wonderful because it kind of just happened. I wasn't expecting it, so I just tried to enjoy it. So that was my first time applying for the Royal Academy Summer Exhibition, and yeah, it was such a lovely experience, and they really look after you and, you know, selling the work. And yeah, they take a small commission, but knowing that helps to fund the school and everything that they're running, and that they are, kind of investing in new artists and stuff is, so that was totally fine. They take the commission.
Yeah, because I guess there's some commissions where you're like, wow, that's a lot, and also I'm not really sure what you're doing with it, whereas with them you really, there's that transparency.
Yeah, they really looked after us, and it's very slick, all of the labelling and how they inform you if you've been like selected and everything. So yeah, you know, but it's very competitive to get in. Like there's 65,000 people or something that apply, so to get in was amazing on my first go. But I think that'll not to like take the shine off that experience and maybe give it another year or two before I apply again. Because I know that there's people that have been trying for years and years. So I was really fortunate to get it so quickly. So yeah, it's definitely been a highlight. You know, going to somewhere like the Royal Academy, and like it was you know, you don't know where you're going to be exhibited and which artist is going to curate the room. So I was in this really amazing room where there was a lot of like kind of crafts people or makers and things. So it was like quite a dynamic room after, you know, lots of beautiful rooms full of paintings to then end up in this kind of more sculptural room was really cool. So yeah, that was a great opportunity that I had this year.
But I feel also, you know, you say, oh, it's great to have had this opportunity so early on. But again, I think, you know, even though you're new as an artist, you have had this first career and, as you say, work in the commercial gallery, etc. Like all of this has meant that you have such a considered approach to being an artist in a way that if you were straight out from art school having never worked before, you know, that it would take much longer to get
noticed, etc.? Because I think you know where you're going and you know how to get there in a way that maybe some people might not, right?
Yeah, there's kind of different artists and makers that I really love the career that they've kind of established for themselves. So it's sometimes you do have to work backwards to work, like, what are the things that they've done, like where have they got funding from, and because there's a lot out there, and it's great that there are so many amazing galleries and like organizations that will support you, and but it's quite hard to like figure it all out and see which one's right for you. So
so it is actually helpful when people share where they've had support from, and like which galleries, and like their experiences with different galleries, etc. Because that helps you map out what you might want to do or not.
And a lot of that has come from networking, kind of before going back to college, but then also afterwards. So I've taken part in a few different development programs, and one of them was with the Art Workers Guild, which is where I met you. And I took part in their Creative Connections course that they had this year, and getting to meet other artists that are in a similar position in their career. Like, we were all very different. There was textile people, and a milliner, and a furniture maker, and a clockmaker, but we all had very similar challenges, and having that support network has been really helpful this year. And like, I've applied for this show. Did people think this one was good, or any ideas about funding? Having a network that you can call upon to ask for advice is really helpful. So it's definitely helped me kind of shape different goals that I have for myself. But sometimes it is just like remembering that it's all taking time. I have to be patient, and some of these goals are, it could happen next year, it could happen in 10 years' time. What's most important is that I keep making the work, I keep pushing the work, I keep trying to be visible.
But it's that difficult thing of you have a plan, but also not all of it is in your control, right?
Yeah, and so I've spent most of this year doing lots of different events, meeting people, which I've really enjoyed, but I haven't maybe spent as much time as I would like kind of pushing my work. I've got lots of different ideas. So the plan is kind of, to have maybe a quieter start to 2025. I have a couple of exhibitions and things, but I'm going to hopefully take some more time in the studio, not be as distracted by applications and things like that, and just start to have kind of longer periods of time in the studio where it's just about me making, not worrying about people seeing it. There's ideas that I've had from back in college, and then stuff that's came since then. I haven't had a chance to push, so I really want to do that and have less time doing artist admin on the computer, more time outside in nature, which was kind of the whole point of me trying to,
and I guess it's that thing, you need to put yourself out there, but then you also need to like take a step back and be in the studio and focused on making and experimenting.
Yeah, and not trying to jump from like this thing to the next thing, so probably putting a bit more structure into my calendar, like having concentrated time to like push the work. Maybe I'm starting to teach workshops as well. Like, so this is whenever I'll do workshops. This is whenever I, there's a cycle to applications and things. So it's like knowing that this one's coming up, this one's quite important, and starting to like see it coming rather than just, it approaches and then you sort of do an application in a panic, in a hurry. So,
but I guess again, that's knowing the industry it is quite regular, the schedule of the shows, etc. And when Collect is going to happen, and we know when Future Heritage is going to happen, and we know when all of these different things, the summer exhibition. And so I guess again, it's taking the time to get to know the industry is quite important, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sort of still at a stage where like I'm just saying yes to every opportunity that comes, because like I want to have these experiences, and you want to meet people, and you don't really know if it's going to work for you or not until you do it. So I'm saying yes to a lot. But I suppose now I'm kind of starting to understand from doing more shows and like what is working for me and maybe what's not working for me, and and
you have to dip your toe first and see, is it the right audience, and is it the right support, and
Yeah. And yeah, it's kind of knowing as well where to like invest my money, I suppose, as well, because I'm not like making a living yet from doing what I'm doing. Hopefully in time that will come, but
yeah, because you mentioned you're still taking on freelance work to support yourself, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it's any money that does come in, it's like trying to decide whether do I take part in that show? Would that be really great to have a photographer, give me some new images of the work, or I really want to do a course and things, or I need more materials or a piece of equipment. So it's, I can't do everything all at once. So it's, having to prioritize. So at the minute, like photography feels like such an important thing for me, having really good images of my work so that whenever I'm approaching galleries or different competitions and stuff, like I've got these professional really.
And I guess it is important because people's attention span is literally, you just make that first visual impression and then they decide very quickly whether they do or don't like it, whether it does bring up emotions or not. And if your image isn't like sharp, then that...
Yeah. So I have spent quite a lot of time like working on my imagery and like what I think is nice and kind of suits the work, and so whether it's photographing it for a gallery, but then also it's like I take the work into nature as well, and I photograph it outside, and it feels much more evocative of what it's about. So at the minute that's where any money that's coming through, it sort of feels like it's most important to put it into that. But I'm hoping that next year I'll get to do like a nice course. I want to learn more basketry techniques and kind of learn more about paper making and different ways that I can use paper as well. So
you're aiming for a quieter year in 2025 so you can focus on nurturing your creativity, but you do have 2 exciting shows coming up, is that right?
Yes, so there's a really lovely gallery called Gallery 57, which is in Arundel in West Sussex. So I'm going to be doing 2 shows with them. So the first one is Constructed, and that's in February. And then Tell Me a Story, which I think is in March into April. So I'm very excited about both of those because it's a very much like a curated show, and the makers that are involved are people that I really admire, and so to be in the mix with them is really exciting. And
that's really important to be seen alongside people whose work you really love, and also I guess for you having, if you're doing one thing at a time, you really have the opportunity to give it your all and your focus, right?
Yeah, completely. And I've kind of known for a little while that these events were coming, so I can be a bit more, gives me more time to think about what work would be most appropriate for those shows and to make new pieces and things. So I'm really looking forward to it. And it's also quite nice that it's out of London as well, because I've done quite a lot of different things in London this year. Also shown my work back in Northern Ireland and Liverpool and a few other places. But it's nice you can get a little bit absorbed into what's going on in London because there's so much happening here, but to actually to explore other parts of the country is really nice. I'm really looking forward to those shows.
You talk about wanting to connect with others and wanting to bring nature to people's lives. How does that align or maybe not align with where you feel the crafts ecosystem is going?
That's a good question. I've been doing lots of different shows, and I have long-term goals for myself in terms of taking part in like events like Collect, which is like the pinnacle of contemporary craft in the UK, and I hope that I'll get to experience that one day. But there's definitely concerns about like the exclusivity of some of the events that happen around contemporary craft. So I'm seeing more and more. Because it's a bit like Freeze, what that's kind of done to the art world, where it's
it's so expensive to go.
So expensive to go, and it's really kind of invitation only, and it's for VIPs and things. And so I can see how like there's a lot of energy around contemporary craft, and that's great. But it doesn't necessarily feel like a lot of people are benefiting from that. It's kind of a small amount of makers and kind of these VIPs who get kind of like first dibs and access to on all of this. So, so it's, I think I have to like not just focus on that. So there's other things that I'm doing as well with my work. So, different types of shows, starting to teach. And I would love for my work to be acquired into public collections and that kind of thing. So I think there's a balance of all of it. I don't want to just get too focused on these kind of very elite contemporary craft shows, because there's more going on, and I need to sort of get absorbed into. I want to be part of all of it. And
I think that reflects some of my concerns as well. And part of wanting to do this project was so that I could share it with an audience, and the audience wouldn't have to pay, and the artist wouldn't have to pay either, and it could just be sort of democratized in a way. But I think you've beautifully highlighted the importance of the work museums are doing, because they truly do bring such a wide variety of works to all audiences in a way that a commercial show can't always, or galleries, etc. So,
and it's great that I'll be able to like share this with my family, and like sharing magazines with my family. Like that's they understand that, whereas there's maybe like certain galleries and shows that I'm aiming for, and they just don't really know much about that world, and would maybe find it a bit intimidating. So it's good to be kind of spread across as much as possible, and not get too reliant on one side of the craft landscape. So
no, totally, and connect with a variety of people. So last question from me: what would be a commission that you would love to get?
I mean, ideally, I'd love to be like an artist in residence at like Kew Gardens or the Chelsea Physic Garden or something like that, and be there for quite a long period of time, maybe a year, experience all the seasons and make work in response to that. But also I'd love to start to work with interior designers to, if they wanted to kind of, have a group of my work, whether it's a small group or a larger group, like an installation, and work with them in terms of getting, ideally if there was nature spaces connected to like the property, or, whatever they're working on, or like a favorite place or a favorite season that was important for the client, then I could make work in response to that, and kind of make it more personal for them. So it would be lovely to start to do, for people to purchase like a bigger group, so that it's got impact, and that but it still is,
and the personal narrative through
it. It's still like, it's, I have to be in nature to get inspired. It's not necessarily like we just need things to be all in this color palette. Like if I can't weave nature into it, I don't sort of enjoy the work as much, and I don't think it is as effective. I've definitely noticed that from doing shows, that maybe the ones I really love and have a very strong memory to, people respond to it. Like I have seen people pick up my favorite ones and stuff. I think it is. I think it is visible. So
So actually, in terms of commissions, you need to have that sort of like setting where you're linked to nature, but also and there is a thread, but there's like enough trust there that the person is allowing you to fully explore your emotions through that, and your interaction with nature.
Because the work is quite seasonal, so there are kind of quite clear color palettes with the pieces that I make. So hopefully, if there was a particular scheme and it kind of needed a certain aesthetic, then I'm sure we could work together to kind of get the right pieces that would fit that space. But it would be lovely if there was a connection to the place or the season with the client, so that it was a good kind of marriage. So those would be lovely projects to start to get. So
well, hopefully, fingers crossed for you that it will happen.
Thank you.
And I think perfect time to end the interview, as the sun is just starting to go across my face again. We did a good job of trying to hold it back for a little while. But thank you so much for having me here, and such a pleasure to talk with you about your process and the materials that you use, and just what it's taken to get to where you are. It's really lovely.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be part of Artfully Crafted. So thank you for coming.
The Artworkers Guild just started a fundraising campaign to support and increase the outreach work we already do with school children, educators, refugees, and early career makers. This includes the Creative Connections programme Joanne took part in last year. And of course, the more money we raise, the more ambitious we can be with that good work. I've included the link to our Just Giving page below, and thank you in advance for any donations you can spare. Thank you also for watching. It means a lot, especially as at this moment, the channel is entirely self-funded. So please spread the word, you know how, like, share and subscribe. See you next week.
Joanne, take 2.
Yeah, so it was my first time applying to the role.
I need to be looking at you, otherwise it's not a shot.